You're tuning in to the Bueno Power Hour podcast. On this episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast, I speak with Jemimah Barba. Jemimah is an artist currently residing in Fresno, California, who is one of the founders of the Laguna Collective and also part owner of the 1418 Fulton Street zine shop located in downtown Fresno. We just talk about humble beginnings and such, being a Filipino artist and sort of the struggles with that. A lot to talk about. It's been a long time coming, and I just want to thank you, Jemima, for giving me this opportunity. So stay tuned for the show. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I am your host, Arthur Bueno, and on this episode, I have Jemimah. She's an artist currently residing in Fresno, California. I had the pleasure of actually working with her on a zine that she was able to release with me, and actually was able to distribute it in one of her shows, or a few of her shows, which was titled Short and Sweet. And it was a lot of fun, and to see her kind of progress from where she's at today is pretty phenomenal. Jem, it's good to talk to you, man. How's it going?
I'm good. This is exciting.
Absolutely, it's exciting. So to let you guys know here, I have never talked to her on the phone before. This is actually my first time. I've been a big fan of her work as a musician and as a photographer. Saint X was actually spinning for me in the summertime jams here in Connecticut.
Oh my gosh.
Makes me feel kind of like I'm back at home. And not to mention that, she is a respected Filipina who I am inspired by, who is just doing the shit, man, just really making things happen. And you just recently graduated, correct?
Yes, I did this May, actually.
Oh,
I did.
Man. Insane. So what did you major in?
I actually studied anthropology, cultural anthropology.
Okay.
And a creative writing minor.
Man, and it took you a little while to kind of get that degree. How many years were you in school, though?
I was definitely struggling for the last few years. I was definitely like one of those people like didn't really know what to major in. There's a lot of us there, and I'm actually really grateful that I went through the different phases just to really get the right major. But yeah, I've been going to college since I was since 2017. So however long, 2000, I would say I was 17 in 2012, I think, 2011. So it's been a while. Yeah. So it's a long journey. It's like definitely non-linear to go to college. It's not, like a 4-year college turns into 7 or something.
Right.
So it's non-linear.
Yeah, and I totally get it. So let's actually kind of just talk about sort of your beginnings as an artist. I've only known of you as a musician from the jump, and then seeing you kind of progress into being a shop owner. What kind of made you start on music? And I guess maybe let's just go from here. Because you being a Filipino and residing in the States and having punk rock values, there's not many of us out there that have, I guess, that background. And I'm certainly one of those people that can't really connect with other Filipinos that,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So I
Hmm.
guess let's talk about that. Let's just talk about your kind of background as a Filipino artist.
Sure. Actually, that's a really good starting point, I think. Um, I guess for me, I just grew up with, um, I grew up with listening to music that is not necessarily considered like pop or anything. So
Right.
my uncle really like showed me like The Cure and even like Parokya ni Edgar, like
Yes,
stuff
yes.
like that, and like just kind of like actually listening to what they're saying. And my biggest heroes, I guess, in Filipino music would be like um Eraserheads, right?
Yeah,
So just
absolutely.
kind of like having like that influence like early on kind of just swayed me towards like making my own music. And my mom actually, she was the one who bought me my first guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And I was first was for my sixth grade. When I was in sixth grade, it was my birthday gift. So she kind of encouraged me to do that, and that
Hmm.
really opened a lot of ideas for me to writing my own songs, just like staying up really late at night. And even I think one of the biggest, like, I know it's not about music necessarily, but I was actually exposed to a lot of literature when I was in the Philippines when I was in sixth grade. The same time that I was playing guitar, I was reading this um, books by this writer called Bob Ong, who was very critical about the Philippines government. So
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily that kind of radicalized me right away, but it really got me to thinking about the way that I viewed the world versus the way my friends viewed the world. So
Right.
that kind of really set me like advanced, um, kind of set me forward about being critical about the way I viewed certain systems, certain ways of thinking. I started becoming like aware of my positionality as like a girl, right?
Right.
And just being this like girl in Manila. Um and I didn't have the words. I didn't know like sexism. I didn't know feminism, but I was starting to think those kind of ways. So it was just kind of, that kind of like set me where I am now. I mean, looking back in my life, I feel like I never really changed. I just feel like I've been consistently who I am, and I'm just improving. So
Yeah.
I think that really changed, that really opened me up to who I really want to be. So like around that time, it was really early because I would bring the same kind of literature like books to my friends, and
Hmm.
they didn't really quite get it, because it's definitely talking about more of a bigger, like a larger picture. But I'm really happy that I actually, it was my cousin who told me about that author.
Hmm.
And I don't I don't really know. I don't really read his books anymore, but I'm really grateful that I did at one point in my life.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
after that, like around that's actually when I left to California. So my mom, my sister, and I moved here in 2006, right from Manila right to Fresno. So I
Wow.
had yeah, so it's just kind of like a big jump, like I lived in Manila, which is a very busy city.
Yeah.
And it's a huge city. It's like very compact.
Hmm.
But coming from there to this really quiet town of Fresno, suburban California. So it's kind of like, wow, like where do I go, right? Like,
Right.
right off the bat, like I went to like a Catholic school, and I didn't really fit right in, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, and I think the whole mentality kind of just went with me, like the same mentality that I had. So it definitely took a lot of like, um, I would say, patience to find the right crowd to be with,
Absolutely.
because it wasn't until like I mean, I don't know. I think it was kind of fast too, because I got here when I was 12, and around when I was 15, that's when I started going to CYC.
So yeah, and that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of one of those things I realized because you have such a large resume of of involvement with the punk rock scene in Fresno, and um, you know me being in bands in Fresno and being affiliated with a lot of these folks, it was a little strange. I have to tell you. I mean, I didn't really start off as being a real. Well, I didn't really start off in like going into hardcore shows. I was going to a lot more, I don't know, indie coffee shop acoustic shows and stuff. And I think that the CYC when it opened up, and when Elmo Marconi started doing the second and third EPs, that's when things started to really jump, with all these hardcore kids. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I would want to say, so we're since you had kind of mentioned being 15 and coming straight from Manila, and it must have been really tough as far as a female, and knowing that in our culture the Filipino culture, from my experience, has oppressed a lot of our women, and just the way how they I guess think. I mean, and maybe you can kind of expand on like sort of our culture and why punk rock may have been a great vehicle to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm talking much more in a larger sense, but like I said, at one point I didn't really have the right words to describe who I was, but
Yeah.
I just know that I was just being that thing. And even like my the last time I visited the Philippines, or the first time I guess in the very long while since I moved here, was in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and I met a group of people from the studio called Red Verb Studio, so shout out
Right.
to them.
Right.
Um, and they actually recorded Say Next, like we did like a live studio session, but they really opened me up to the way that a lot of the majority of the Filipinos think, because they, like politically, if we're thinking about that, they love Duterte, right? Like in the majority way, like they love him because I mean he's a president there. Like when I went there, I was very shocked, right? Like everywhere there's like photos of him, there's like
Yeah.
banners of him, like
Right.
shirts and stickers. So the majority loved him. But when I met these people from Red Verb and RJ, Megumi and everyone, like Jam, John, and like they kind of opened with like the punk rock, like the actual like the anarchist Filipino bands, they hate him so much. Like they actually fight so much for them. Like so like there's definitely this resistance, and Filipino like the Philippines have a long history of resisting and protesting,
Yeah.
always looking for the independence and fighting against fascism. So,
Right.
for me, I'm like, where are those people? When I went there, like I was like, where are those people? I want to connect with them. I want to get to know them. I want to like talk to them about these issues. So it's just really, for me, it was really amazing that I got to meet these people at this certain show that I went to when I saw Band Shirley, or the band Shirley, and I
Mm-hmm.
met them after the show. Like a very typical like after show kind of like hanging out, and then that's when you meet your friends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
kind of the same thing happened to me in Manila, in Quezon City, and right off the bat, like we clicked, we like hung out after that. It's like my last week in Manila, and we hung out every night. Like we would get drunk and we'd sing like Eraserhead songs in the
Yeah.
studio. It was amazing. So I think for me, like I always longed for that connection, that kind of uh, connection and camaraderie in the community. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like punk is always against the mainstream. It's always, that's kind of the root of it. It's kind of looking for a place where you can be who you are
Mm-hmm.
against the mainstream idea of who you need to be.
Yep.
So I always look for that whenever I go, wherever I visit. So it's really nice to go back home and find that, because in the Philippines, I didn't, when I was actually living there, I was just a kid. So going back as an adult, it's really nice to like open up to these kinds of people
Mm-hmm.
that get to, that are actually aligned with what I believe in.
Right.
So
And
and then mhm.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just agreeing with you.
And tracing back now, I think that now that we have the language to talk about these issues that are important to us, especially in this social political climate, like we have this kind of like, like connection. Like I feel like even now with the shop and the community that I am in,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 25 now, so that's almost 12 years of living in Fresno. I feel like I'm really witnessing this um, change, right? Like this inclination or like towards like social justice um, kind of activism in Fresno, and I like that. And I think that it's very new. It's very new,
Mm-hmm.
and but the people that are involved are, I really hope to see more people the same age that I was when I was just going to CYC. So that's kind of what pulled me into doing the shop, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I I'm definitely glad. I'm so fucking proud of you, man. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
I was gonna say you bringing that Filipino love. You bringing that to fucking town, man. I love
Dude,
the
I'm
shit.
trying. Dude, I'm fucking trying hard out here. It is not easy.
And
It
I
is
know,
not
man.
easy.
I know, dude. I know, and I get it. Let's actually talk about some of the things that really kind of inspired me as far as your upbringing and such as your music. And so first of all, are you still doing Saint X, or are you kind of just putting that in the back burner?
It's definitely, of all the things that I could do, it's not what I'm prioritizing right now. Like, I know that music will still be there, but I think that my vision doesn't really include being in a band, Like, I feel
Yeah.
like music is cool. I actually enjoy being the one on the other end of the show, like actually the one listening.
Right.
Um, to me, like, just gonna say it out there, like playing shows really fucked with my mental health.
I'm
Like
sure
it
it
did
did.
not. I didn't like the pressure. I didn't like being in a band with people that didn't really align with what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like I care more about myself. I love myself and I respect myself. So I had to really get myself out of that situation. But
Mm-hmm.
music is I love playing music, but it just has to be in the right terms. I love the songs we made, and people tell me that. People today, still to this day, like people tell me that. So even to just have that made that impact in like 2 years of being in a band, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like wow, like we really did something there. But no, but I really do miss it though. At
And
the end of it.
I definitely do miss it. I mean, it's one of those things, and I think that what I loved about it was really it brought, and especially knowing your background, it really had the Filipino California vibe. Like I don't think anybody understands how important.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? How, at least in our culture,
It's
we
hard.
yeah, it's so hard to kind of be recognized as an artist. And I'm always in support with Filipino artists. I don't know if you had a chance. I had actually interviewed and she became a good friend of mine, Nika. She's actually
Mm.
an artist in LA, and Filipina who is just doing amazing things. And it's just kind of nice to see how, I guess for me, when I was growing up, the Filipino women that I've had known weren't artists. You know what I'm saying? They were more
Mhm.
all about, yeah, I love that 90s like music, Aaliyah, fucking DMX. Let's go look all like Tommy Hilfiger, gangster and stuff like that. That's what I grew up with. With
Mhm.
Pinoy's like with the spiked up hair that looked like the characters from Dragon Ball Z and shit, and like you know what I mean. Um, so it is kind of like interesting to see yourself and other Filipino women who have really taken it, really made a point that, yeah, we're out here, and I'm so proud, man, of y'all like really doing it up and making it fucking happen, dude. God
Exactly.
damn.
And I think that's another thing too is like like people like you, Nika, me, like people like us, like I think we really have to push ourselves to make space for ourselves and like for other
Sure.
people like us. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, I live in a predominantly like Latinx community.
Yeah.
And like it's they're very represented in everywhere I go, which is amazing. Like that's amazing. But as
Sure.
for me, I feel like I also need to bring in that Filipina heat. I also have to bring in that culture with me, because if I don't, like it's self erasure. Because I
Yeah.
think if we don't bring in like our memories from the past, like me having to live in the Philippines, like if I don't talk about that, I feel like I'm not representing myself.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, like I'm looking at Nika's work right now, and I've seen her stuff on Instagram, and I think it's amazing. Like, they're bringing in, photographs and like visual representation of, what it is to be, how is it like to be in the Philippines.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of us in like the artistic realm,
Right.
of like, and especially with a very niche thing like zine printing or like reso printing. I think
Mm-hmm.
that we're really underrepresented. So it doesn't mean that we're not there. It doesn't mean that we're not doing that. It's just that the spotlight is on someone else. So for us to
Mm-hmm.
make room is like very necessary. That's survival.
Absolutely. I will definitely validate for you on that. And it's strange because the only Filipino kind of artists that I know is really the some of the folks from that created that zine crew, Hamburger Eyes, that's based from San
Mm.
Francisco. They actually moved to L.A. And that's pretty much the only thing that I know. And even with bands, I mean, I've I'm always searching for Filipino bands that are out there. I got a chance to listen to bands like Stage Kids. I don't know if you ever heard of Stage Kids.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're like a Filipino math rock band, and some of the people from the Philippines, like ourselves, the Elves, and
Yes,
uh,
so good.
oh my God, dude, yo, like, so I listened to that record just recently, and that shit just made me melt. You know what I mean? Like,
Ourselves the elves, yeah.
yeah, they're just so good. Them, Fools and
Oh
Foes.
man, they're killing it. Like, I mean, the indie community. I mean, I got
Mm-hmm.
to see ourselves the elves and last summer, and it was amazing.
Man,
Like live, and it's very low key, but they're killing it. Like their voice is amazing. Another good one is like Megumi Accorda. Like their new EP is really good too. So I try to keep up with what I know what my friends are doing.
yeah,
Like even my friend Jam is in the Geeks. He's the singer for that, and
yeah.
I love the Geeks. They're amazing, and I just feel like it's growing. And
Mm-hmm.
as far as like the literature, the art community, literature community, zine community, um, FU from Cubao Expo, they have a studio. They have this store called Studio Soup Library, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also killing it. It's just like it's global, and I think. For us Filipino Americans, I look up to the people back home because
Yeah, me too.
they're
Me
killing
too.
it. They're killing it. So I just hope that here, like we like empower each other, empower
Mm-hmm.
ourselves to not give up just because, we're kind of solitary in our community. Like I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
about you, like we're like actually I'm really curious, like where you live, like how is it like being Filipino there?
So, this is really interesting because and I'm kind of happy you asked me that question because as a Filipino and being part of the scene and moving to Connecticut, mind you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was married, and I'm much older, obviously much older than most people think. I was married and had a divorce about a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it got me stuck here in Connecticut and whatnot. But um, as a Filipino American, and especially in a state that doesn't really have that kind of population, it's really strange because you know I'm always associated by three types of races, whether it be Filipino. They will probably see me and be like, oh yeah, that person is Filipino. We can tell. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Mexican, or Indian, and I always thought that was
Mm.
strange. And for being in the East Coast and Jem, I gotta tell you, man. I mean, these people are tough. Like they're fucking
Hmm.
assholes. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean? They're
bet.
fucking assholes. Um, but I mean, that's kind of the way it is. You kind of have to grow tough skin, and you kind of just got to understand that, you know, um, this is what it is. But as a Filipino American living here in Connecticut, and I've had some encounters with Filipinos here, but they just what sucks is that they're very exclusive. They
Mm.
don't really have the same interests that I have as a Filipino American, and being my age, I'm 33,
Mhm.
and being able to kind of be part of any kind of Filipino community that you and I long for, it doesn't exist,
Mm.
and that's why I look up to you so much, because I'm one of those people that want to be part of your faction. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I want to be part of Nika's faction, where she is raising awareness of like our culture and how we're not even represented, as an artist. We are only thought of one particular thing. And I mean,
Mhm.
could you believe that there were only a few Filipino folks in high school, one of them myself, and and whatnot, who were part of like punk rock, but all these others, they're all about self-destruction, like drinking and getting fucked up high and doing drugs and shit, and especially for me being straight edge, it's even worse because I can't connect to a lot of Filipino Americans here. All they want to
Mhm.
do is fucking eat and drink. Like, goddamn, dude, like what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? So it's a little strange, but um I don't know. I think maybe I'm very much I miss Fresno a lot, just because seeing how the scene has changed and how punk rock has um really the punk rock scene has really kind of changed from when I left. I just see it as being something so, just the community seems like it's more together, and I kind of wanted to talk about that actually with you. You had opened up this zine shop, and let's kind of just talk about that. It's really a community like shop for not only just Filipinos like ourselves, but just like LGBTQ and misrepresented folks. And kind of let's just talk about sort of
Sure.
your business. Yeah.
So, well, prior to the shop, so we had opened the shop last year in August, but prior to that, we had already have something going on called Laguna Collective.
All right.
So the shop is without that. Like it can, I mean, can adapt. I mean, the shop cannot exist without that. So Laguna Collective is really it was created out of urgency. My partner and I wanted to make zines. So that was the whole premise of the thing. But then we pushed ourselves another level and we told ourselves like we should print zines for people. So that kind of prompted us to look for a printer. And I was just so intrigued by the methods of reso printing.
Right. Right.
So we had acquired one the same year that we thought about doing the collective. So in
Mm-hmm.
2017, we had acquired a reso machine, and ever since then, we've been printing for people in the community. So we
Right.
had made it our goal to open. We open our studio for people that want to print, and they kind of inquire, with us what they want to do and what we can help them with that with a um, very fair amount for a very fair amount of money to print. So
Right.
ever since we've actually been, this was created in like between me and him. This was like we're not trying to be popular or anything. We're not trying to make you know a lot of money out of it. Like we just wanted to just share the love of zine making.
Right. Right. Right.
So, but last year we kind of noticed like we really needed to push a reso machine out of my backyard. We had this like little shed in the backyard, and we wanted to move into a store, kind of like a studio, where
Mhm.
we can also sell zines by other people.
Mhm.
So last year, around fall of last, no, no, I'm sorry, last year and around like winter time, I
Mhm.
guess like I would say January. That's when we really push ourselves to find a place, and Scraps, Tony Samolis is a really great photographer too. He
Mhm.
helped us kind of like push us to say like, hey, you should really check in with Warner's Theater around the corner to see if they can lease you that place. So 2 months later after that, we signed the lease, and a little more, a few more months after we signed the lease, we opened the shop in August 2018. So that's kind of like the chronological order of it. But
Mhm.
it's really because we want to share the love of scene making. And, inside the shop, we definitely support independent artists. We support black and brown zine makers and artists.
Mhm.
And from the Philippines, like so, like earlier when I was talking to you about Ev Yu from Cubao Expo,
Mhm.
like we contacted her from when I was there, so I could actually buy some zines from the artists themselves in the Philippines. So it's been a really great time like having a shop, just because like it's kind of like a very welcoming place. So once you go in there, there's like so many books and like little trinkets you can like look through. And
Right.
every
Right.
month we still have art hop. Yeah. So every month we still have an artist that we feature. And that's a
Mhm.
really great way to kind of get everybody involved. Like they buy zines, and we don't like, what you're saying is like when people drink and smoke, like that's, I understand if people like to do that, but we want to be a sober place. We don't really like want to have like alcohol in our place. Like we don't really support or promote that. Just because I want it to be an all ages kind of place,
Very.
and
Very.
it does.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we want it to be welcoming, but also having, we also want to have materials that represent all spectrums of all like races and all different backgrounds. So, we're very explicit in um, supporting LGBTQ causes and
Yes.
LGBTQ people, and black and brown publishers. So that's kind of our whole agenda with that.
Mhm.
We're not making tons of money because that's not really like our thing, but it would be nice to be supported. Like a business is a business, but at the same time we do have a cause, but we don't want to fall into that like organization. Like we don't want to be like a nonprofit either. So it's a very
Right.
complicated area that where we want to be, but
Mhm.
we've been hired on by other organizations to do workshops with them. We've been hired on by institutions to do talks and workshops with their students. So it feels really good to be recognized in that level as well. So,
Right.
we're not like too like completely, I wouldn't say like super formal people, but it feels good to be recognized on that level.
And you should definitely, you guys definitely deserve the credit for kind of bringing that to our our city. And what's what sucks is that it took this long for someone like yourself to actually open such a creative place, creative outlet. And I've seen so many folks who have tried to bring um, togetherness in any kind of function, any kind of organization. I mean, I'll tell you this. I remember Food Not Bombs. I don't know if that's still going on in Fresno, but I remembered going in there and just feeling really uncomfortable with the folks. You know what I
Mm.
mean? They're these vegan, like kind of like progressive thought thinking type of folks. And I remembered seeing them kind of chopping up vegetables and fruits and stuff to get ready for the eats for the homeless community, what I'm saying, which was really cool. But there was a point where I would come in there and play a show, and then people were just like fucking drunk and high as fuck, and just really just trashing the place. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Um, I don't know if I've ever had that same experience when I went to the CYC. Sure, it was rowdy, but they never made me feel uncomfortable. With crazy, just crazy acts, I guess. And that's just, kind of just based on experience. But what I love of what you're doing is you're bringing in an all ages platform. It's very, very Discord Records of you. It's very, Ian Mackay of you. And motherfuckers don't understand how important it is for kids and adults to stay intact with their artistry. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't understand how much it means for us to have this kind of like platform. And you're
Mhm.
probably the first person to actually do this shit, man. Like, do you not realize that?
I mean, I don't really want to take all the credit, but at the same time, like, I grew up, like going to info shop and going to CYC, so I was definitely influenced by that sense of community at the same time. But there's definitely like those few bad apples that kind of they don't care about like the space that they're in, or like there's no respect. And like the like when you're talking about the people that getting drunk, because I know my friends also would drink around me, but some people would like act really really wild and like disrespectful. But
Absolutely.
like I think another level of understanding is that the community needs to understand that it takes money and effort to keep a place going. And
Right.
I've seen, like seeing people kind of just trash the place. It's just utter disrespect. It's very disrespectful. So
Right.
I think community needs to also understand that there's people behind a certain space, and that people doing all the work are the more unrecognized, like the people, especially like women of color, like doing all the work and stuff. I feel like there's definitely that kind of gap, between the people attending and then the people that are keeping the place open. There needs to be some kind of like meeting place where there's mutual respect and mutual support. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of like what you're talking about, is like if people just respected the place a little bit more, it would still be going on. It would still be
Yeah.
supported. So it's so hard for like DIY spaces to exist, because people just don't understand that in order for this place to exist, you need to put money into it. And
Right.
money
Right.
is, it sucks, but that's the truth. Like, landlords nowadays, like they expect so much money from people, especially for DIY spaces, because it's kind of like rundown spaces that are being occupied, and they have to fix everything.
Right.
So I think that's another thing that I want people to understand. Like, if you want music in your community, you need to really support them financially and show up. And it sucks that like some people don't can afford to do that.
Right. Right.
Um, and some people just have other excuses. But like I'm definitely guilty. Like I'm really busy with school, and I wish I could go to more shows. And I wish I wasn't so broke. But we're trying to have another space open, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm
So
saying. Like, it's kind of, you and your partner are putting all your like your energy and your finance into something that you guys believe in. I think that people don't understand is, what you are providing is a space for creatives to actually express themselves. And yes, it does take money, does take time. And you should not feel guilty about not being able to go to these functions, because you're already contributing to the community as an artist. Like, you and your partner are artists who are helping other artists, and that's already saying a lot already. And I don't know if you understand how important this place is to people, but this is like big. When I first, you know what I mean? When I first heard about Laguna Collective, I was like, oh my god, like Jem is gonna fucking kill this shit, you know. And I can already see it. You know, I was a big fan of like your photography, you know, very honest like body of work where, you know, you're just taking snapshots of life. And you know, I've seen you kind of collaborate with folks like Knighted Life. Are you still affiliated with Knighted Life?
We actually carry their stuff in our shop, so I definitely
Man,
support them, and it feels good because like
yes,
Nick is also super cool. I love his shit.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, they're fucking amazing. And you know, these are like folks that I identify with quite a bit. You know, as a photographer, I went to school for this shit. You know what I mean? I actually
Hmm.
graduated with a BFA degree in documentary photography.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean shit if you're not making good quality work. And it's these people like yourselves that are just like, man, I'm just photographing because I love it, and it's not contrived. It's honest. That's always what I've always like known of you from outside. You know, not knowing you personally. I've always seen you being so honest with your approach with shit, and I love it, man. I fucking love what you guys are doing, and you know, I'm definitely really proud of you guys holding it down and letting people know, dude, this is real. You know, don't you know, you want to be creative, we have the space for it. Obviously, there's, you know, some money that needs to be part of it, but what doesn't
Hmm.
need money? You know what I mean? These days.
Yeah,
So,
and
I don't know, man.
thank you so much. Like, thanks for like recognizing that about us. But I mean, like from the beginning, like Laguna and the shop have been. That's why we're called like I call ourselves a community space because we're really community centered and people really supported us financially from the
Right,
community, even the people that we didn't know,
right,
putting in money in our GoFundMe, believing in what we do, and now we have this space that we can share it with people. So
right,
I think this, like, we were so overwhelmed with the support that we got prior to opening the shop, because between me and my partner, we didn't have a lot of money. Like we were still living with our parents at that time, and we didn't have like a stable job. So for people to really come in and like support us financially, and like even showing up really late at night to paint our walls, like I think that's amazing. That's community there, you know.
mm-hmm,
People, like, even like young folks to like, folks older than us would come in and help us, and I really felt like supported and loved, and I could see that people really believe in the work that we're doing.
right,
So yeah, like I just think that that's also another part of what we do, is like being transparent about what we need. So, along the way, along our journey of like doing the GoFundMe route, we would update people like, this is how much we need for this, for the wall, for the paint, for the floor, for this, blah, blah, blah. Like, and people would see that and they would contribute however much they could.
right,
And that,
right.
to me, I feel like that's love, dude. Like I feel like that is completely like love. So I love Fresno, and I love the people that showed up for us, because that means so much to me.
Yeah, I
So
I
mhm.
would have to validate that, man. I mean, you know, as a Filipino artist who, you know, well, I came in Fresno as a musician and then became a photographer before I left, you know, to live in like the Bay Area and now here.
Mhm.
But I gotta tell you, man, like, and I have to agree that these folks, you know, when you're really doing something for the community, they really they really support these folks. And I just, man, you know, I just wish I was there to even witness all that shit, you know. I
I
really
mean, we'll
did.
be here if you move back. We'll be here.
Well, that's kind of, well, that's the plan. I mean, so me and my partner are planning to move either to the Bay Area or to LA.
Mhm.
And you know, currently we're actually in a process of moving into an apartment together. And you know how scary that shit is, man.
Mhm.
You know, we don't know
Totally.
how we're gonna function, you know, in our everyday. And I'm pretty sure, you know, because yeah, I don't know, like my parents, they weren't really necessarily an old school like thought-minded type of folk, where you would get married first and then like live into an apartment. But
Mhm.
I've always had that. You know, I'll move into somebody's house or something, and then kind of just figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But it's what I mean. But at this point, man, I mean, we're trying. I guess you and I are just trying to
Mhm.
get shit done. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really proud of you, man, and I guess that's pretty much all I can really ask of
Okay.
you is what I'm saying, of just kind of knowing what's been going on. Is there anything that you want to shout out before we end the interview?
Um, I guess just I mean, I won't really know about like shout out, but definitely like just a message for everyone. Like a lot of people come up to us talking about, like the shop and opening a shop. I would just say do it. Like, like I guess shout out to like 3F Gallery in San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Creo and Imran really, like they were really inspired by the work that we do, and I hope that um the kind of like spirit and kind of energy is just passed on to different communities, because this doesn't only just has to happen in Fresno. It can happen in different places too, like Sanger, Madera. We used to
Mm-hmm.
have a studio there too, so I just hope that things like this pop up in Central Valley, because we need it. And like I
Yeah.
think we shouldn't be greedy about the spaces that we occupy. I think it should be shared. So yeah, thank you so much for like interviewing me for this amazing podcast, and like even being interested in like talking with me. That's Thank you so much. Like there's so many amazing people there, so thanks for like asking me to do it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I've had you in mind for so fucking long. You don't even understand. And I've always wanted to interview you because, there's there's something about our community that I need. And I think that, as I'm like kind of tearing up, I'm just really happy that, you're out here, really showing our culture that, we're not just Catholic school kids. We're not, fucking doctors, and, you know, we're we're people who want to make a difference. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the only people that I've known aside from yourself that are Filipino that are making a difference is Bamboo and Rocky Rivera, which are
Mhm.
rappers from the Bay Area, in Oakland. And
Yeah, and Ruby Ibarra.
Ruby
Let's talk about her
Ibarra,
too.
she's
Yeah,
she's on she's
amazing.
she's a fuck she's on the come up. You know what I mean? And
Amazing.
not only that, seeing like Nikos Santos, from Superstore. I think that's from Superstore. He actually
Amazing.
was featured in
That's
Crazy
right.
Rich Asians. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, um, not a lot of us exist here, Jem. And that's kind of the thing that it scares me. It scares me the fact that like yourself, Nika, like you're the only two that I have that I know that are part of this community. So I want to thank you very much for really representing us in the way how I always wanted it to be represented. And
Thank
you
you.
know don't do not don't change, man. I need that. You know what I'm saying? I need your guys's inspiration. I need to be inspired, man. And I'm gonna come back. I will.
Yeah,
I
you
would.
have to.
I have
You
to.
have to visit us.
I will fucking take you and your partner out for some eats, man. We'll eat and we'll just fucking chill, take pictures and shit, and do
Yes.
whatever, man. You know what I'm saying?
We would love that. We would honestly love that. We'll be
Man,
here.
I,
California's waiting for you.
it is. All right, Jem. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. You have a good one.
You too, man.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. And that concludes this episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I want to say thank you to Jem for being part of it and giving me the opportunity to interview her. And it's true, there are not a lot of Filipino representation in the arts. It's kind of it's kind of shitty to really just dig for these folks and really be part of it. Have them, find these folks to actually have some sort of connection and be able to have that opportunity to collaborate with them. You know what I mean? I don't really have that here in Connecticut. I don't really have anybody that I can connect with in that level, and it's really strange seeing that people that I don't even hardly know, are really doing it. They're really out there crushing it, and I couldn't be more proud, man. I fucking love the fact that these folks are really bringing it to the table, because some of you are not. Some of you are not, helping the community out and giving us, or giving them, these kids, the opportunity to be creative. I'm certainly not one of those people. But, maybe doing this podcast will allow me to kind of put forth some of these folks and let them know of their cause. So yeah, maybe I'm doing my fucking part. Maybe I'm hoping to be part of that someday. Anyway, guys, if you like this episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want more episodes like this, I do this bi-weekly. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Bueno Power Hour podcast. See ya. Have a good one, guys.